Hi everyone, Mariana with Three Peaks Classroom. Today I think it's really important that we talk about how hard teaching online is and how us teachers are struggling. I've talked to many online teachers and everybody has the same struggles and the same stresses, and I think it's really important that we voiced those stresses and concerns and we kind of commiserate together. If I'm being honest, I wanted to film this on Wednesday because I was so stressed out and I was so frustrated with how everything is being handled and the expectations that are placed on us. But I realized I was a little too emotional to film that video in that moment. So I wrote down my ideas on my cell phone and I waited a few days, and I'm glad that I did, because this week, at the end of the week, something amazing happened in my classroom. And that only would have happened because we are teaching and learning online. So I will share with you what happened in my classroom at the end of the video. But for now, I do want to talk about why is this so hard for us and put those feelings into words and explain it to the world why it's so hard for us. And I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I'm going to keep this short and sweet. So the first thing I noticed is that none of us went to school to learn how to teach online. We all went to school to teach in a classroom. So for us to either be voluntold or, I volunteered to be in an online classroom, it still doesn't make it any easier because we don't know what the best practices are. And so, while we are expected to teach online, we are also learning how to best do it. So myself, and I can imagine how many other teachers spend countless nights. Our free moments are spent learning about Chrome extensions or specific websites or applications or programs or whatever that are supposed to make our life easier online. And they do, but in order to use them, we have to know as educators how they work. And so that time that is spent learning that is often unrecognized and it's often unpaid, let's be real. And that is why I think a lot of us are burning out so hard, is because in addition to lesson planning, we're trying to figure out best practices and trying to incorporate that into our classrooms. Another reason is that tech glitches are so catastrophic in the online world. If you were in a regular classroom and a website wasn't working, or, an application wasn't working, you could just take a break. You could go outside. You could, move on to the next activity or word work or whatever. But I find that if you have an entire lesson devoted and a website is not working all of a sudden, that to me is very catastrophic. And that happened to me in the very first week of school, where, the passwords that I handed out to all the kids weren't working because of the specific URL that I gave to the kids was a teacher domain URL. And although, I'm glad in hindsight that happened at the beginning of the year and we figured it out, it still was catastrophic. We lost a good 45 minutes to figuring that problem out. So another struggle that we have is that it's really hard to know how our kids are doing. We can't read their faces. And we're lucky if we can see a lot of kids on the screen at the same time. But, when you're in a classroom and you're doing a lesson or you're reading a story or you're connecting with your kids, you can judge how they're understanding by looking at their faces. And that's really hard to do in an online world. And that it takes a lot more effort for us to do that, looking at every child on the screen and trying to figure out, are they comprehending? Are they connecting with the material that I'm providing? And that's really, really hard. And so the only way to know how our students are doing is by doing those small group tasks or, assessing any sort of assignments that they're handing in. But then that requires us to be doing a lot of assigning and assessing. And that takes a lot of work, Not only do you dedicate a whole day of plans, but then in the evening, you have to be spending your time assessing everything that they've handed in, just so you know what to teach the next day. Because if they didn't understand the math concept, then, what's the point of moving on? You have to reteach it or you have to address it in a different way. So that adds a lot more time to our online teaching schedule. We've been told that, online teaching shouldn't be that much different than regular classrooms. Actually, it might even be a little bit better because you have less limitations. But I have to kind of say that's a little bit of BS, and pardon my language, but it's really hard when you're teaching online because as a classroom teacher, the best practices are to manipulate things and to work with your hands, especially in those younger grades. It's fun and engaging. But when you're in an online world, you're very limited in what you can do. And it just really irks me when people say that, oh, it's just like a regular classroom, or just treat it like a regular classroom. What would you do in a regular classroom? And it's just very frustrating. One PD that I attended recently gave me a suggestion for a slide on how I could plan my language arts block. And they suggested doing like a daily 5 rotation where you include a word work activity, a read to self activity, a writing activity, and yada yada. And while the kids are doing those daily 5 blocks, then you have the opportunity of working with small groups of students on the side. And in theory, yes, that's kind of what you would be doing in a regular classroom. But in an online classroom, I'm being interrupted with my small group because of tech glitches. I'm also expected to record instructional videos on how to do everything. So all of my word work activities, work on writing activities, read to self activities, I'm expected to record myself explaining to the kids, because that is best practice, right? Kids need to see it written, kids need to see instructions written and also visual. Okay, I get that. But where am I going to find all of the time to prep all of those 5 activities, the actual activities like the websites or assignments or worksheets or whatever, and write out all the instructions and explain it all video and upload it, create it into a slide, and get all of those activities ready and still prep for small group lessons? That is a lot of expectation on us teachers. And that is one of the main reasons why I feel like I am burning out, and it's become very, very stressful for us. So, okay. And the last couple things I wanted to chat about was just connecting with students and how hard it's been to actually develop that sort of relationship and connection with my students, because we have that limitation of the screen. And I've shared in previous videos some things that are going really well in my online classroom and tips that have worked for me. And I do plan on filming another video soon here about activities that work really well in my classroom that I have been using repeatedly, and it helps to build those relationships. But I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. It's hard. It's hard to maintain and establish all of those relationships, because if a child chooses not to turn their video camera on, then do you really get to see them during the day? I'm lucky if I get to see all of my students every single day. And that's just being plain honest. So that's been really hard too, is trying to establish those relationships, because that is number one priority. That is what's most important. And the last piece of stress that I have with online teaching has to do with parent involvement. And I mean, you have the one side where, not a lot of parent involvement, and that is definitely visible in the students' assignments and things. But the bigger issue for me actually has been over-involvement. And what I mean by that specifically is that, there's no way of knowing how much was done truly by the student and how much was helped by the parent. And it's really hard to get an actual representation of a child's ability through online learning. There's no way to be 100% accurate with that. And that has been a big struggle for me as an online teacher. The glimmer of hope in all of this, though, is that I had an amazing moment, an amazing epiphany that happened this week. And it only would have happened because we were online learning. And that was a student of mine went above and beyond for an assignment, and she really blossomed in the assignment. And the assignment was to create a commercial. And the parameters were set, and I explained to the students, this is what's the required content, but also, make it jazzy, make it fun, try to add music or props or things like that. But this child went above and beyond and had her entire family support her. And she put on costumes, she had music, she did video cuts, and she edited everything beautifully. Now, again, I'm not sure how much was her and how much was her family helping her, but I had a chat with the mom afterwards, and mom said that she really enjoyed that project. She was really excited to get to it, and it showed in her video just how amazing it was. This video legitimately brought me to tears, because I've taught this student already, and watching her blossom over the last 2 years has been just the most encouraging and uplifting experience I could have had. And I sat back and I realized this only would have happened because we were online teaching. There was no way that she would have been able to produce that kind of a quality video in the classroom on her own. And so there is that glimmer of hope there. So my advice to everybody is to hold on tight. You know, this is going to be a long ride, but find those little glimmers of hope that only could have happened because they were teaching online or because they were learning online. Find those glimmers of hope because they are there. And it will make everything, all those long hours, worth it. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I would love to know your thoughts on how teaching online is going for you. Please leave a comment below. And if you want to subscribe and like the video, that would be so helpful. And I would love that. Have a wonderful week, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video.